Welcome to Rise of the Machines, Episode 1, Kevin Warwick, Professor of Cybernetics, Cyborg. I think Kevin Warwick should be a household name. The stuff this guy's done is incredible. One of the things I want to point to is the 2004 episode of Coast to Coast AM with Kevin Warwick. I heard this episode when it happened 12 years ago. Kevin Warwick, if you don't know, is the professor of cybernetics at Oxford, or at least was at some point. He wrote Cyborg, which that in conjunction with, I believe, Isaac Asimov's I, Robot book became the movie I, Robot. And actually, it might have not been I, Robot by Asimov. It might have been Bicentennial Man, or can't really remember. But nonetheless, Warwick is the human cyborg. Back around that time, he had his body surgically implanted to the internet. And I think he was in New York, and someone in England was able to control his fingers. Part of what was trying to be demonstrated at the time was to show that there isn't much of a difference between human beings and robots, whereas robots are electrical machines and humans are electrochemical machines. But nonetheless, this episode of Coast to Coast, I think it was George Norrie was interviewing him, and Kevin Warwick had pointed out that there were, hundreds of factories and warehouses filled with robots in them, and they weren't the nice friendly robots. These were either robot soldiers, robocops, or other kind of agile android human-like robots with intelligence, and they've just been sitting on them for years. And this is back then. And right around then, 2004, shortly thereafter, I saw Star Wars Episode 2, Attack of the Clones, which Obi-Wan Kenobi went to that planet where there was all those Jango Fett clones being made for this giant clone army that nobody in the galaxy even knew existed, or it wasn't even on their star maps at the library. So it was this unknown location where they had this giant factory of clones. Now those are clones. Clones aren't robots, but still it's this idea of, unbeknownst to everybody, this gigantic army being built. Contrast that with the movie I, Robot, which was made around that same time. And in I, Robot, the film, they had, you remember that those vans were just, they had all those android robots in the vans just ready to go. And they had factories with those. And this is what Warwick was telling us in 2004. Imagine what it's like now in 2016. So if there's somebody I think you should become aware of, it's definitely Kevin Warwick. He's got the book I, Cyborg. It's on Amazon. It's elsewhere as well. Try to get a copy of it, or at a minimum, look up Kevin Warwick, kevinwarwick.com. And maybe even if he's got any recent Coast to Coast interviews or other interviews, check them out. Because here's what Kevin Warwick says. He says that if we do not become cyborgs, if we do not enhance our bodies to compete with the robots, we will become second-rate species. And the way he kind of describes it is, if a dog came in a room and started yapping, other than being concerned that he may go to the bathroom on the floor, do you pay much credence to what that dog is trying to say? You think of the dog as a second-rate species. Now, you may love your dog in your family, but what we're talking about is the dogs don't really have much of an influence on policy, on government, on decision making, other than, you don't want the dog to go to the bathroom. He's saying that once the robots with AI that far exceeds human intelligence, much like Ray Kurzweil predicts, is that we will become second-rate species if we just stay as our natural flesh and blood human creation. We will need to get augmentations, enhancements, microchip implants, and other enhancements in order to remain relevant as the dominant creature on the planet. I'd say this is a pretty serious warning that he's provided. After he concluded his presentation, there were callers that called in and were begging him to stop designing the robots, because the robots were going to conquer us and take us over. Rise of the Machines. And he said, listen, even if I stop working on robotics right now, there's no way we could stop this, because too much money is going to be made by corporations and by individuals chasing money, that the money is so lucrative, so astronomical, that it destroys common sense, destroys thinking that, hey, if we design these robots, it's spelling our doom, because the money is just too much. So he says, even if he were to stop right now, there is no stopping it. This is coming in the future. It's up to us to either adapt or become a second-rate species. Don't take my word for it. Check out Kevin Warwick yourself. I don't like to be an alarmist, and I'm not really trying to warn you. I'm just trying to get you to consider some of the information that's out there It's not in the mainstream all the time. If it is, it's just cute little robots here and there. But it's that decision that you may have to make in the future is, do you want to become a cyborg? This may be considered part of transhumanism, but in terms of robot versus man, it really is a unique question to ask, is that we are essentially electrochemical robots. Robots are electrical robots. How much different are we? If we could get a robot to think, perform, behave as a human, aside from the biological internal makeups, what's really the difference? So where do you stand? Leave it in the comments. Are you going to become a cyborg? Will you rise against the machine? Or are you going to let the rise of the machines make you a second-class species? How far are we to a fully automated society? How long will our jobs last? Is it just mercy of the controllers of society that we even still have jobs? So this is the first in a series called Rise of the Machines, and we will be covering over the months stories of robots doing human-like things, taking human jobs, performing human functions. And what I'm trying to do is get people to become aware of the reality of the robots that exist and to show the abundance of information out there of different research programs, projects, prototypes, and actual working, functioning robots that currently exist now and have existed in some cases for decades. I'm talking multiple decades, since at least the 80s, 70s, 60s, and then in some instances we have the automatons from the 1700s. You heard that right. So we're gonna, as time permits, we will be covering all these different aspects of robotics in 5-minute segments. I'm gonna try to cram as much as I can into 5 minutes. This is the first episode. If you like this kind of subject matter, make sure you subscribe to this channel. Like, comment below about different robotic things you may know about. We'll try to cover them in future episodes. So thank you very much. Look forward to seeing you again next time.